Hey guys, Raven here. In my last video, I wanted to know what some reviewers said about Demon's Souls multiplayer. Why? Well, because I felt that Bluepoint didn't do an effort to overhaul the multiplayer experience, and in some cases, it made matters worse. And with reviews like the ones I highlighted on my last video, why would the developer make any effort to make a better game? So in this video, I'm going to discuss what I think the flaws with this game's multiplayer are. Now, before we begin, let me preface this by saying that I really like to play this game. I just got the platinum a few days ago, and invading is still fun, even with all of its flaws. I have many more videos planned out. However, I'm not a supporter of the motto, play the game that was given to you and then complain, just have fun. While I can do both, have fun and still highlight its flaws. People thinking of buying the game deserve to know, and developers need to have constructive feedback. Only from constructive criticism can a product improve. This is my attempt to do so. I will not address combat balance in this video. While I don't necessarily agree with how combat is balanced in this game, this video will just end up being an endless discussion of tastes. Finally, I don't think most of the fault from what I'm about to say belongs to From Software. Demon's Souls released in February 2009. The online ecosystem had nothing to do with what it is today. Demon's Souls at launch was considered by many to be a failed game in which From Software tried a lot of crazy ideas on. Balance was not the issue of the game at the time, survival was. Bluepoint, on the other hand, should have known better. They had the time and the experience brought from other From Software games to know what worked and what didn't. I believe they just didn't care enough about the multiplayer aspects and decided to concentrate their efforts on other parts of the game. Anyway, get comfy because this is gonna be a long one. We've all been there. We invade and sooner or later the host disconnects, bringing the invasion to an end. This is a problem in all Souls games. It seems, however, that in this game the issue is more severe than in other games of the series. Bluepoint should have put systems in place to punish hosts that do this. Dark Souls 3 had two mechanisms in place for this issue. Firstly, if you disconnected often, your connection to multiplayer would cease. You would be soft banned. You could regain that connection through an item called Way of the White Circlet, which was not an easy item to acquire. This system was, however, very unreliable. There were multiple reports of this system not working properly. Another system that was present was the re-invasion of that particular host that disconnected. I don't know if this was an intended mechanic or not, but I used to re-invade disconnecting hosts a lot. That brought some justice to the disconnecting problem, although it was of course not an ideal solution. No mechanics like this are present in this remake. A player can disconnect at will without any known consequences. I had sessions with over 50% of disconnects. That is not a good online experience. Punishment of hosts aside, I want to go deeper on this topic. Why do so many hosts disconnect from the game? In Demon's Souls, every time you kill a boss, you regain your body form. This is similar to killing a boss on Dark Souls 3. You will become membered in that game. So far so good. However, in Demon's Souls, there is a mechanic unique to this game called World Tendency. The World Tendency system allows players to be able to get weapons, equipment, and events that only appear depending on the World Tendency that specific world is in. The World Tendency mechanic is a fine single-player mechanic, however it plays badly in a multiplayer environment, as you risk losing the possibility of manipulating it if you just play the game normally. The largest, most common way of impacting World Tendency is through killing bosses to move the world to pure white, and dying while on body form, which will shift the world to pure black tendency. Because of this, pure black World Tendency is much easier to get in pure white. This is why every guide tells you that the most efficient way to play the game is to always play in soul form to get pure white world tendency in all of your worlds, in order to get the loot that is only possible to obtain in pure white, and then turn that world to pure black by using a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes to become human and killing yourself. Rinse and repeat until pure black to then access that world pure black events. A way used by players to circumvent this mechanic is to kill yourself in the Nexus every time you kill a boss, which is one of the dumbest mechanics of any video game I played. But what does the tendency system have to do with invasions, you ask? Well, it matters because after killing a boss you become human and get primed for your world tendency to drop when you get killed in that world. Picture this, you kill a boss in soul form and you feel great and want to carry on exploring the next area, so you forget to go back to the Nexus to commit your normal suicide routine. You get invaded and get killed. Your world tendency drops and you can be locked out of certain pure white events in certain circumstances, without having to resort to fixed online fights like trying to be invaded by a friend in order to kill him to repair the damage made by the original invasion. The host, realizing its mistake when he sees the invasion message, can choose to fight or simply disconnect to preserve his tendency. And that's why I don't get half as salty when players disconnect in this game. Players have much more to lose if they die to an invader in this game than in any other of the series. In newer Souls games, being invaded and killed is a much lower stakes affair, as nothing too serious is lost when you die as an host. In Dark Souls 3, for example, you lose your Ember and Souls, and you can get your Souls back at your dead spot. This maximizes online interactions, which is a good thing. In Demon Souls, the tendency system has the opposite effect. It detracts from a non-controlled online experience. A simple solution to this issue, without changing the tendency system, is to give players some agency regarding online interactions. Simply award a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes when you kill a boss, instead of forcing the player to become human. This would bring better flow to the host's game, as he could progress to the next area without being at the risk of invasion and thus preventing disconnects. This would also negate the need of the host having to kill himself in the Nexus after killing a boss. But I would go even further. Imagine that your world is pure white and you want to make it pure black. You go to the menu, you select the Stone of Ephemeral Eyes item, and a menu pops up asking if you want to play X Stones of Ephemeral Eyes to lower your world tendency. That would be a nice quality of life change, instead of manually having to pop a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes and committing suicide 6 times or so. Whenever you win an invasion, you get your body form back. Then, if you want to invade again, you need to kill yourself because you can only invade in soul form. This is very time-consuming and boring. This issue is compounded by the fact that each world is subdivided by regions divided by fog walls. So if you want to invade near Ostrava in 1.1, for example, you need to kill yourself after winning an invasion, respawn at the Archstone, run all the way back up the ramparts, go through the Blue Night and into the Fog Door, and only then invade again. A simple solution to this would be to allow a player to invade in body form. Another solution, maybe with less lore implications, would be to award a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes whenever an invader manages to kill the host, and not force the invader to get his body form back. There is also an alternative solution at the current time I'm doing this video, which is for the invader to disconnect after killing the host, but before the game brings the invader back to his world. The invader will spawn at the place where he invaded and in soul form, so he can invade again. But this is a workaround for a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. Another reason hosts, especially lone hosts, disconnect so much is that invasions against lone hosts in this game are terribly easy for invaders to win. You don't even need to min-max your character that much to have a 1 or 2 shot build at low to medium soul levels. Whenever I invade a lone host, I win a huge percentage of my invasions without much effort. If a host perceives invasions as non-winnable, and a good amount of invasions are in fact unwinnable, a lone host will disconnect. A big reason for this is that, contrary to Dark Souls 1 Remaster and Dark Souls 3, your weapon upgrade is not factored in terms of matchmaking, which is quite absurd. If you know what you're doing, you can have a fully upgraded weapon at very low levels, either by beating the game at low level, or by deleveling, or because a friend dropped you a highly upgraded weapon. This is compounded by several mechanics that can increase your damage significantly as a Black Phantom. These include Foe's Ring for an extra 20% damage, upward of 75% Black World tendency, and upwards of 50% Black Character tendency for even more damage. Although I feel that those increases to weapon damage should be brought down, at least make Invasion Matchmaking consider weapon upgrades. With this remake, Bluepoint allowed for hosts to summon phantoms by password. It's a good feature that allows friends to co-op through the game or to play PvP with friends. Dark Souls 2 already had an in-game system to allow this through the name engraved ring. Dark Souls Remaster, Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne had menu options to allow for password matchmaking, so it is no surprise that the Demon Souls Remaster has the same system. However, what puzzles the mind is that there is no downscaling of blue phantoms. This has never happened in any Soulsborne game with password matchmaking. A high-level blue phantom will be able to 1 or 2 shot virtually anything in the game, bosses and invaders included if the host is playing on normal game. There is no possibility that Bluepoint was not aware of this. It is blatantly obvious with minimum playtesting. I believe that they didn't care to fix the system for launch, and until today, a couple of months after the release of the game, it still exists. Dark Souls 3 seemed to have a system that prioritized invading parties. This is in line with From Software's invasion philosophy. An invader is basically an organic way to balance the game challenge. Whenever a host plays in body form, human form, or embered, they get more hit points, and the game becomes easier because of it. Whenever a host summons a co-opper on top of that, the game becomes even easier. This means that it makes sense to direct more invaders to a world where the game has been made easier from summoning. This also burdens less lone hosts who are only having the advantage of more health instead of summoning. This would make the game fairer to lone hosts relatively to ones with parties. However, this does not seem to be the case in Demon's Souls remake. I see no correlation between the number of times I invade parties or lone hosts. I don't consider this to be a must-do thing on this remake, but it would nevertheless be a nice addition to the game. After much speculation before the game launched, we learned that the respec option was not included in the game. The original Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne never had the respec option, while Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 both had respec options. However, the absence of a respec option in the case of Demon's Souls is particularly stupid, because although the game does not allow for respecing, it allows for something much more dangerous from an online perspective, which is de-leveling. De-leveling was never allowed in any other Soulsborne games. It goes very much against the fabric of these games because of online scenarios. Picture beating the game with fully upgraded weapons at Soul level 60 for example, and then the leveling to Soul level 20 to be able to matchmake with low level hosts. It's a hardly fair situation for those hosts. In the OG Demon's Souls and before the latest patch, there was a multitude of ways to de-level, invading and whitestoning out, throwing yourself from a cliff when invading, etc. De-leveling should have never been in the 2020 remake of the game, but it was. Fortunately, however, Bluepoint removed de-leveling from the game in the latest patch. Well, sort of. Although the easier ways of de-leveling were patched, there are still ways of de-leveling. That's what I'm doing in this clip right here. I believe players should have a few possibilities in each playthrough for respecing, without the possibility of de-leveling. It encourages players to keep playing the game with different builds and weapons, either for invading or for co-oping. I never agreed with item trading in Soulsborne games, especially weapons. It makes no sense from a PvE and PvP balancing perspective. Remember, From Software's main design idea regarding difficulty is to bring a sense of achievement after beating what the game throws at you, either in PvE or PvP. In Demon's Souls, a Soul level 1 can summon a blue friend, and he can drop the host max level weapons and upgrade materials, and because of the grass healing system, a tremendous amount of healing items, among other useful stuff. After all of this, the Blue can just quit the game and all of those items will still be in his inventory when he relaunches the game. This is because the game only saves the Blue status when he gets back to his world. Because he quit, he never did, and so he will still have all of his items. Dark Souls 3, for example, also allowed trading of stuff, but would only allow the drop of weapons upgraded to the max level that the host had upgraded one of his weapons. It was not perfect, but it was significantly better than this one. Also, the game would save a player's status every time he dropped or picked any item, so quitting would not work. Yes, he could reload the save file, but it was a bit more work and thus a better system. I believe the invader spawns in the remake are the same that are on the OG Demon's Souls, and they are really bad, for the host and for the invader. A decent spawn system should be at some distance from the host, and preferably near the PvE mobs in order to prevent the spawn killing of the invader. Be in a location that gives choices of where to go for the invader. No spawn points should be allowed in tunnels or choke points. Be in front of the host to prevent the host being backstabbed as soon as the invader enters the world. It's just bad design to spawn a PvE or PvP enemy behind the host without a clear sound or visual cue. All of this simply does not exist in the Demon's Souls remake. You get 1 or 2 spawn points in every subzone of the game, and that's it. The game does not care if you spawn directly behind the host and promptly backstab him. It does not care if you spawn in a choke point or narrow area like in 1.3 or 4.1, and it's extremely easy to spawn trap invaders by a party. A full rework of the spawns would be a very nice addition to the game. So what are the invasion subzones? Have you noticed those non-boss fog walls through the levels? Well, those fog doors divide invasion areas. This means that in order to invade before the adjudicator in 4.1, for example, you need to haul your ass to that part of the level before you invade. That is inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. The problem is that every time you win an invasion, you gain your body form, so you need to kill yourself in order to be in soul form to invade again. When you kill yourself, you respawn at the Archstone. Then you have to run again to that subzone of the level to invade again. This is an absurd system, and the reason that the large majority of the invasions take place near an Archstone and always in the same areas. This issue could be solved if you simply award the Stone of Ephemeral Eyes when an invader wins an invasion, instead of making him return to body form. This is linked to the subzone issue. It would be nice for the game to have a system that searched all of the sub-areas in each Archstone, or preferably in all of the Archstones, for invasions and allowed you to invade there. Ideally, you could opt in or out of certain subzones or Archstones. This is especially useful when activity starts to dry out. I proposed this on my critique of Dark Souls 3 invasion system, and it has since come to my attention that a mod was developed for Dark Souls 3 with this exact function. It's the Wax Dust mod. Since it was introduced, it made a lot of people start invading again, because it allowed invaders not to have to be bonfire hopping all the time, which is great. However, even if a similar system was not implemented by Bluepoint, they could have at least made an effort to show an invader in which world, in which zone, hosts were ready to be invaded. This system was introduced in Dark Souls 3 after the Ring City DLC dropped. I'm not sure if this was present in the OG Demon's Souls, but in the remake, you cannot go through certain PvE mobs while invading. That means you can get stuck until those PvE mobs are aggroed by the host or by blue phantoms. Dark Souls 3, for example, allowed invaders to clip through most mobs if they ran into them or if the invader started rolling. This game should have a similar system. Whenever a blue or a red phantom spawns, there is a brief period where he is invisible. I don't know if this is intended in order to protect the spawning of the phantom or if it's just a bug. Nevertheless, this never existed in any Soulsborne game as far as I know. It can be pretty annoying being killed by a phantom you cannot see. I've seen a lot of comments stating that Bluepoint tried to make pretty minimal changes to the game in order to preserve its identity. I don't think that's quite true. They did pretty big changes in this remake. Many of them just weren't the right ones, although some of them were good, of course. Let's take a look at some of them. Besides the introduction of a password system in which phantoms are not downscaled as discussed above, Bluepoint also allowed multiplayer to go from 4 players to 6 players. In invasions, this means that instead of 3, 1 host and 2 blues versus 1 invader, you can now go to 3v3s. Although this might be a fun system for fight clubs or for challenge runs, I don't think that it makes any sense in invasions. I would much rather have a 4v2 like in Dark Souls 3. This is because I don't think that the 3v3 invasions are remotely fair for the host and their party, in the overwhelming majority of cases. Again, this system was not present in any Soulsborne game, and I am not aware of anybody asking for it. If Bluepoint really wanted to innovate and make a 3v3 PvP mode, maybe they could have made an arena, but alas, like in the original, there is no arena. In this game, Bluepoint decided to make rather big changes to how players connect to other players. Usually in the Soulsborne franchise, you only get 2 options regarding matchmaking: worldwide matchmaking and Japan, although the in-game wording changes from game to game. It would be nice to be able to have some player agency. I've played against US streamers and the latency is really noticeable, and I would like to be able to choose European servers for a better online experience in future From Software games. It is something I hope From Software improves with Elden Ring. But then Bluepoint comes along with the Demon's Souls remake and decides to give players maybe too much agency by allowing players to choose from a long list of servers. The issue was that players cannot interact with people from other servers. This breaks the fantasy of being able to connect with every Souls player in the world that is playing that game, or at least a big amount of players. But more importantly, you are often forced to go to the starting menu to jump from server to server in order to try to find some multiplayer action. Although the online experience improved after the patch, it still baffles me why they thought that listing 30 or so servers for the players to choose was a good idea. This is also an innovation. In Dark Souls 3, for example, patch notes were published in-game. Not in the new Demon's Souls in 2020. We have not heard from Bluepoint since the release of the game, except on the 24th of November because of the before mentioned patch. Frankly, it is astonishing that the game dev does not publish patch notes in this day and age. Bluepoint decided to cap the amount of healing items and change their carry weight. The more powerful the healing grass is, the more it would weight. From the hours I've played in PvE or PvP, I can safely say that not once has the healing grass rework made any impact in me playing the game. It didn't make the game easier or harder, either in PvP or PvE. Specifically in PvP, the only change I felt was forcing me to go to Stockpile Thomas to replenish my grass between invasions more often. The amount of grass that you can carry is still so large, and the typical invasion is so short that it never really made a difference. In my opinion, if they wanted to maintain the grass system, they could have just left it the way it was and concentrated their efforts elsewhere. There are more things to talk about, but this video is already too long and the points I made are enough to reach the following conclusion. Bluepoint didn't care that much for the multiplayer aspects of the game, and although the game is fun, it could have been a much better experience. I would wholeheartedly like to see Bluepoint address some of these issues, but given the lack of communication and overall status of multiplayer, I feel that this game will continue as is. This is because it's the way it is by design, and not because they simply didn't know how to improve the game. I would gladly like to be wrong though. In a lighter note, I would like to tip my hat off to From Software. The progression of multiplayer systems and mechanics in the Soulsborne franchise is fascinating. I am curious to see the evolution of this formula in Elden Ring. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you next time. Raven out.